Okay, so we're going to make sauerkraut and we're going to make kimchi. And again, I've kind of pre-prepped everything. So the sauerkraut is going to be interesting because I did an experiment with the sauerkraut. I did a little variation. I've never done this before. So in my last class, I did a sauerkraut making demo, and what happened was as I started, I could see the looks on people's faces as I started making the sauerkraut. And I could see them saying, "I'm never going to do this. There's no way I'm going to do this." It doesn't take that much time. So to make sauerkraut, what you want to do is you want to take a cabbage, a green cabbage, you want to chop it up. Any way you want to chop it up. You want to chop it up thick, you want to chop it up thin, you want to use a food processor, doesn't matter. I chopped it up about like so, you can see. Fairly thin, but not obsessing about it. And once you've chopped it up, you want to, as you're chopping it, you want to start to kind of pound it a little bit, and I already did this, to kind of release the fibers and release the juices in the cabbage. So I already did that. I kind of would chop it on a cutting board, kind of pound it a little bit, put it in the bowl, and as I'm doing this, if I was doing this in real time, I would have put salt in as I'm going. Now I haven't put any salt in yet. And you want to add per cabbage for about a 2-3 pound cabbage, you want to add about at least a tablespoon of salt as you're going. So sprinkle it in as you go. Now I haven't done this yet, so I have to kind of do that. And I never measure it, I just wing it. You want to have more salt than not enough. You don't have too much salt. But I just kind of, and I'll just mix it in. Really kind of get it in there. I like to add caraway seeds. I think it gives it a nice flavor. It's optional, you don't have to. So I'll add the caraway seeds in. Alright, so I'm mixing it in. Maybe as I'm mixing it, I'm kind of like massaging it with my hands to keep breaking down the fibers. And then, now last week, remember, with the beet kvass, what did I put away? It's in the fridge. Okay. Last week, when we did the beet kvass, we made the whey. Well, I still got the whey. I still got it left over in my fridge, and this is a perfect use for it. So I'm going to add I just added like a few splashes in, maybe 3 to 4 tablespoons, like so. And I'll mix that in. This is how I've mostly made sauerkraut and how most people make it. Now here's the hard part, and here's why when I showed my class the last time, I could see the looks on their faces, is that it takes a little bit of muscle work now. So what you need to do is you need to compact it in the jars. Now traditionally a lot of people would use these big crock pots so they can make a lot of it and make it last through the winter. I just use glass jars, glass mason jars. I find that's good enough. I don't make tons of it at a time. I'll make 3-4 of these at a time, and that'll last me a pretty good amount of time. So now you want to take the cabbage, and you want to see if I can. You want to push it in there, and you need now like this thing has been great. I got this at Different Drummer's Kitchen in Northampton, right down the road over there. You need some sort of utensil where you can kind of pack it in, and this is where it takes a little bit of muscle work. So you want to start. I don't know if you guys can see that. You really want to start pushing it in there and pressing it in there. And that's going to get the air out, and that's going to start releasing the juices in the sauerkraut. And it takes a little bit of time. It doesn't take that much time. I'll probably get a whole jar here. It probably would take me if I do this whole thing, it'll take me about 5 minutes. Last time I did this, I could just see people like, oh my God, I'm not going to. You got to sit there and do this. That looks like way too much work. So it does take some time. This is the hard part. But if you can see, you can really see the juice starting to come out. Can anyone see that? How much it's starting to come out? You really have to come up close to see it. Maybe I'll do one more, and you can really see it with one more. And you want to get the liquid to rise above the level of the cabbage. And that, you've mixed the salt in, and this salty brine solution is what's going to create the environment to allow the bacteria to proliferate and to create the fermentation process so that it ferments. So if I really start pushing it down, everyone see that? I'm just going to walk around. Can you see how the liquid's in there? See how the liquid's starting to come out? show the camera. Tilt the God, the light's coming really bad here, and this, the way the liquid's coming there. Can you see how it's coming out there? So I'll keep pressing this in, and I will leave about an inch, a good solid inch, from the top to the top of the jar to the top of the liquid. Don't want to put it too high because it can explode the jar. This can happen. And so you put a top on it, and you're going to put it in your kitchen. You're going to leave it somewhere, and you're going to let it ferment for about at least 2 days, maybe 3 days, maybe even up to a week. It'll ferment slower in the winter and in the summer, and you can taste it as you go. But you got to make sure that the sauerkraut is below the level of the liquid. So if it rises up, check it every day, push it back down with your hands, make sure it's under the liquid. A lot of people, especially if they're using kind of crocks in larger amounts, they'll put weights on to make sure it stays under. Many people, if they're using even like just a bigger glass jar like this, what they'll do is they'll take a plastic bag and fill it with water and just kind of put that on top. And they'll just kind of nestle it in there, and they'll put enough weight on it to make sure the cabbage stays under the water. So that's how I usually do it. And as you can see, that takes a little bit of time. Now, what I did before when you guys were coming in right at the beginning is and I just found this online recently, is I found a no-pound method of sauerkraut. And someone wrote a blog about it, and I started looking around and started finding all sorts of people doing this, and I've never heard of it before. It's not in Nourishing Traditions, it's not in Wild Fermentation. Basically what they're saying is all you do is you put the salt in and let it sit for an hour. That salt's going to draw the liquid out naturally. And that's what I did with this. And so you can see, I don't know, the liquids, it's great, it worked. And so I don't think I'm going to have to spend much time.
Is the whey in there also?
No, the whey's not in there. Thank you. I want to put the whey in there, so I'll mix it in. So why do we use whey? Whey acts as a great inoculant. It really helps give it a more consistent, it ferments more consistently. You get a better result. Sometimes the batches can go bad. The bacteria in the whey really help. I've never had a bad batch with whey. I have when I haven't used it a few times. You can use less salt when you're using more whey as well. So hopefully I won't have to spend as much time. I can already see how much easier this is pressing in. I'll probably have to spend half the amount of time. It's really just compacting it in there. So it worked really well. And you can see how easy that liquid is already it's coming right out. No problem. Can you see that? The liquid's really just, so that's great. That's a little tip. All right, so that's sauerkraut. Same thing, you just let it sit. Yep.
Do you have to keep it out of the light when it's sitting for a week or a few days?
I think people mostly say keep it in the dark area of your kitchen, put it in a cabinet or something. I've left it out though. Not sitting right in sunlight, put it in a corner where there's plenty of light, and it still ferments fine. A cooler place is a little bit better than a warm place. I have put it in, sometimes in the summer if it's just warm, and I forget about it for just a little bit. It kind of over ferments in the warm weather.
So you don't ever store it in the refrigerator?
So after it ferments, after about anywhere from 2 to 4 days, it should be. Then you put it in the fridge, and then it will continue to ferment, but at a much slower pace. And people say after it will have a different flavor. It does. After a month, 2 months, 3 months, it definitely tastes differently, and it tastes better the longer it ferments.
After you put it in the fridge, how long can you continue to consume that?
Oh, for a good 4 or 5, maybe 6 months.
It doesn't last that long though. Don't eat it. You eat it quickly if it doesn't last that long, especially the smaller jars.
Yeah. I always try to make a bunch so I can last all the time. So that's sauerkraut. So let's do kimchi now. So I gotta finish this when you guys leave.
Why do you make it in smaller jars and not one big jar?
I just wanted to do it. You definitely do the big jar. I just wanted to do it for the demo.
Oh, okay.
That's all. Yeah, these are fine. People use much bigger jars than this. People do use big things like that. They'll use, yeah. And I'm actually going to use this for for the kimchi. So kimchi, what's the difference between kimchi and, I love kimchi so much more. The difference between kimchi and sauerkraut is usually it's a different type of cabbage. So with kimchi, using the Napa cabbage, and that's just, I thought I brought it, I thought I was going to bring one to show you guys. We all like Napa cabbages. It's a more oval-shaped cabbage. The leaves, not less kind of round. It's also called Chinese cabbage, and it's less tightly packed. The leaves are less tightly packed, so you don't really have to spend time pounding it so much, which is a lot easier. And so it's a Korean sauerkraut, spicy sauerkraut, and Napa cabbage and the classic things that make it, give it a nice flavor: ginger, garlic.